Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Coach Edge Show. I am excited to be with you. I'm even more excited to share the person that I have on the other end of the internet from me. And what are some words? Incredibly strong, caring, driven, courageous young woman. That would be what I would describe her as. She is an author. She is a founder of a nonprofit, Kindred Spirit here. She's a former college athlete. She is a former professional athlete, coach, teacher, fluent in Spanish, fill in the blank. But the most important thing that she is my dear friend. So I want you, everyone, please welcome Sierra Jones to the Coach Ed Show. Sierra, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Great. I'm so glad that you take the time to jump on. I know it's been a busy season of life for you. Just graduated with your 15th degree, or I don't know what number of degree it is, but just graduated again on Monday. So just excited for that season of life to have come to an end and you launching into the next. And so one of the things I really want to focus around this conversation with Sierra is being a high level, a former college and professional basketball player. And she obviously played at a high level in high school, went on to play at Belmont University in Nashville and then into Spain. And I've had the joy and the honor of walking with her through all of that, those seasons, and just being able to sit in the stands and be a cheerleader for those. And so I think she's got a ton of wisdom that anybody that's looking to play college, that's in the college game right now and struggling a little bit on the struggle bus a little bit, maybe she can help do that. And also anybody that has aspirations for wanting to go and play overseas or even play locally here. I mean, we're talking WNBA, NBA, G League, whatever, but also I know there's a lot of people that have aspirations to play in Europe and Australia, different places around the world. So I think she's got a lot of wisdom to share on that. So without further ado, let me ask the first thing, Sierra. So let's think about you in high school. You're thinking about being a college athlete. What would you say are some of the skills that a high school player, no matter their talent, right? Let's kind of take talent out of the equation. I'm not talking about a physical skill they need. What soft skill? Like, what are the other skills that are so important, mental, social, emotional, all those things that they need to be developing now that could help them navigate that first year as they step into their college program?
Yeah, and when you just asked that question, the first word that popped in my mind was discipline. And I feel like that is probably the hardest because there's discipline and there's a bunch of words underneath that umbrella. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
do.
I'll give you an example. I was in eighth grade and I actually got my first offer from Faulkner. And that's when I realized, like, okay, if I got an offer in eighth grade, I think I can be pretty good. I remember my strength coach at the time, Andy McCloy, shout out to him in
Yeah,
BCI.
yeah.
He told me if you want to do this, we got to take things to another level. And that was with my nutrition. So at age 12, 13, I was on a nutrition plan. And I have
Wow.
stuck to that now at age 28. So discipline is huge. And that's with what you're putting in your body. So having awareness of that. I think another skill actually is being able to communicate. And what I mean by that is being able to speak to others around you. That's how you get people to come support you and different things like that. Not even athletic related, just with jobs. The connections that you can make in high school, you have no idea how that will transfer when you get older in college and then once you graduate. Because I know the relationships, because I communicate, I was very supportive of not just basketball, but just everyone. They had my back, and either financially or with prayers when I was in college and then when I was coaching. So if I had to say, just the main thing is definitely discipline is just the main skill, but definitely knowing how to communicate and how to support others and even yourself.
Yeah, supporting others. We know how
Yeah.
important and how easy. I was just talking with a young man yesterday. It was on the podcast, and he talked about how selfish he was in high school. Now, fortunately, he
Mhm.
is now in the minor leagues with Arizona Diamondbacks. But I was just reflecting back on his high school and how he was able to overcome injury and have a really good high school career. And I was asking him what his motivation was, and I wasn't prepared for the answer because he said it was pure selfishness. But now he has
Mm.
grown. He has accepted the Lord in his freshman year of college, and his whole perspective is totally shifted. But
Yeah.
he was really honest about selfishness was driving him, but it drove him to success, but it ended up eating him up. Right.
Mm.
So
That's
those are
powerful.
great. Okay. Okay. Discipline in all areas. Thank you for sharing about the nutrition. That's a great example of that. So let's transition now. So we're talking to that high school athlete. Now let's talk to that freshman sophomore. Now
Okay.
they loved the day they signed, and we took the
Oh,
pictures and we
yeah.
posted them all over Instagram. And then we showed up on campus and we're like, and
It
they,
happens to
what
everybody.
first week of school, and
Yeah.
so you've obviously navigated that, and you navigated it with challenges, but that's why you've grown.
Mhm.
So what would you say now to that college athlete that they're in it, they're in the grind of it, they're questioning, are they any good? Do I even
Right.
belong
Do
here?
I even like
Does
basketball?
my
Do I even
coach
like
like me? Do I like basketball? Like, they're asking all of those questions. And if you could sit down with them on the bench and just put your hand on their shoulder, what would you tell them?
Oh, there's a lot to say with that one, but
Yeah.
I think to keep it simple, and even I'll share a little bit more about my experience too. But the
Hmm.
first thing again that I thought of what you just said was I would honestly tell them to be you,
Mm.
because I think that's the first thing. Because when you get on campus, no matter where you go, there's if you're even going to college in your hometown, there's new people, new
Yep.
coaches, new everything. And especially right now, I don't it's like I'm in the middle of like, man, would I want to go back to college right now with the NIL and all this
Right.
mess? And then I'm still I don't know if I would. Yeah, the money looks great, especially if you have again that personality, you communicate, you can get some nice little deals. But on the flip
Hmm.
end, college basketball has turned more into a business like ever
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And one of my former coaches, I actually caught up with her, and she was talking about it that she hates that it's no longer this intentional relationship. It's like,
Hmm.
what's the best that we can get out for each other? What can you
Yeah.
get from me? And so, even if we take into perspective that college now is more business like, even with a business, you still have to show up every day. You still have to be intentional. You still have to be disciplined. You still have to work. And so, my main thing first, is to be you, to know when you step on that campus, to know who you are, because I went to a small little Christian private school. Then, yeah, Belmont is a Christian private school again, but still it's college. You're
Hmm.
exposed to so many things, no matter if it's a Christian school or a public, no matter if it's big or small. So,
Yeah.
knowing who you are from the jump, because you will be tempted. It's not even parties and all different stuff. It's even just like the deepness of depression, the
Mm.
homesickness,
Yes.
all of it you are going to get hit with. I think for me, because when I got to campus, my coach wasn't who I thought he would be. It
Hmm.
was a complete shock. And then this
Hmm.
is another part I would already tell a college athlete,
Okay.
freshman, sophomore, is also to know your outlets. Like, what do you like to do beyond your sport? What brings you peace? What brings you happiness? Because if you already know that going in, you're going to save so much time when you get into that moment and now you're figuring things out. And some of those things you figure out may not be healthy for you. And then
That's
you make
right.
it deeper, you go down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
do.
I had a class called Riders Who Walk at Belmont. And my freshman year, I took that class, and it was literally the professor taught us how to walk without a purpose. Think about we walk
Hmm.
most of the time to with intention to go somewhere. We
Yep.
rarely walk just to just walk and enjoy God's
Hmm.
creation. So
Hmm.
she taught us how to do that, but also with the pen and paper. So jotting down our thoughts. So that class opened up the idea of coping with journals. And
Good, good,
that
good.
became my outlet.
Hmm.
That was my way to be able to release things. I believe in a healthy way was
Yeah,
journaling. I didn't have any of that in high school. I didn't know what that would look like. I
yeah.
didn't have a happy place. All I had was basketball. So I didn't know what makes me happy outside of basketball. So because
Hmm.
of that, I went down deep into depression.
Hmm.
Even though I was
Yeah,
journaling, I didn't have anything to help me mentally to get out. Then I would
yeah.
say therapy wasn't as acceptable as it is now. And now
Hmm.
going back, I wish I was in therapy. That probably
Mm,
would have helped me big time.
yeah,
So I would tell a freshman or sophomore, don't be afraid to go see someone, because
hmm,
mental health is real. Mental
yeah,
health is something you need to pay attention to, and I'm proud to see that the NCAA has paid more attention to it because it's real. I would tell them to be you, to find an outlet, know what makes you happy and it's healthy,
hmm,
and then also have fun. I know
yeah,
that that's actually one regret I do have is that college
mm,
was fun, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I should have. I
mm,
was so headstrong focused on, okay, go to school, gotta get your extra workout in, practice, extra workout, eat, go to sleep. And that was like routine.
yeah.
And
That was
yeah, it
life.
paid off. I played overseas. But at the same time, I don't have fun memories, but it's not the typical fun memories you would. And I would
Yeah,
say typical, I just mean I don't have that many memories. It
right.
might be just the late night conversations with my roommates. That's all I got. We didn't go out of town somewhere. My roommates did. I didn't. I stayed home. I was in the gym. You see
Hmm.
what I
There you
mean?
go.
And
Yeah,
so I regret that. I really do. I did not enjoy it. I was literally that person that if they could get me out, I brought a book with me. I was that person that brought the
yeah,
homework with them while everyone is dancing or even just might be at someone's apartment, just chilling,
yeah,
talking, eating. I had a book in my hand, head down. I wasn't in the moment. I was more
yeah.
concerned about what's next, trying to get ahead, and
Mm,
I did not balance that very well. So I
thank
would
you for
definitely
sharing
say,
that.
yeah, yeah, I would definitely say have fun, um, be you for sure, and just like we talked about that discipline and just
Hmm.
the support and communication. College now is more a business like than it ever has been, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So you got to know that going in, as business as it sounds, like it may look good when you sign that paper, and when you get there, it may be different, and you gotta adjust. And I think what's interesting now with these athletes, they have a choice. They can get the transfer portal. We didn't have that when I was in there. It was if you transferred, you had to sit out a year and
sit
then you
out.
could play. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it's a game changer now that you can just hop in there and go somewhere else and play instantly. So
Hmm.
it changes a lot, but I would just really say being intentional of the people that are there, you knowing that. But yeah, knowing also college, it's tough. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, you're
That's
gonna have
right.
even worse days, just like life. But if you
Yeah.
truly love it and you're willing to work, it's gonna turn out for your favor.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. One thing I want to piggyback on that when you talked about therapy and reaching out for outside sources outside of your team, that's why I do what I do. I
Yeah,
to be that outlet. What I found sometimes is well, one thing, mental health resources are strained on college campuses because we don't have just for athletes. You go to the counseling
yeah,
center on campus and you're just overwhelmed. I'm so thankful for the certified clinicians and counselors that work in the
hmm,
counseling center. But the ones that I talk to, I'll go to a campus and I'll share them. Hey, I'm more of a life coach. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a trained counselor, but I can be that trusted, non-judgmental voice and direction and guidance for some, because a lot of times they say, you know what, we've just got time for the crisis. And a lot of times it's
yeah,
not crisis. You need somebody to listen. You need somebody to give you a little advice, a little encouragement, and a little pep talk,
yeah,
and get before the spiral gets too deep. But they sometimes just don't have the time. That's
yeah,
why I want to be a resource. And so anyone that would be listening to this, absolutely reach out. But if there's not someone there, you think there's a stigma around, you don't want anybody to see you walking over there. That's what Season Builder is all about. So you can reach out to us. So
yeah,
good. Okay. Good. 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 Love that. Love all those. That's just I hope some people are taking note. Well, if you're driving, don't take notes, but go back and watch this and take
Thank
notes. Right? Yeah.
you.
Don't put your homework down. Do your homework, but after homework, go pick this up. Anything else you want to share about your college experience before we move on to the big leagues?
Yeah, I would, and I also would say, I know I mentioned a little bit earlier that my coach was different than what he was when he recruited me.
Yeah.
So just the 3 out of 4 years that I had at Belmont, just dealing with a coach that I would just say nicely just didn't know how to motivate players. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
really was demeaning and broke us down,
Mm-hmm.
verbally abusive. So that was really really tough. And yes, I thought about leaving a lot of times. I thought about quitting
Yeah.
basketball. I even thought about taking my life at one point in time.
Mm,
Just especially really knocked my confidence big time. I actually think that because of my work ethic, I really do think I probably would have been able to play at I don't know, play at the highest level, but maybe even WNBA if that chance, or I
okay.
played D2, maybe D1 overseas, if I didn't allow him to get in my head. Because
Mm-hmm.
I digressed big time. My
Mm.
freshman year, I did great. I think I was like runner up for freshman of the year.
Freshman of the year.
Sophomore
Yeah.
year, I definitely had that sophomore slump. And then junior year was kind of like I just was existing.
Yeah.
And then
Hanging
senior
on.
year, I was able to break free with an amazing new coach we got. But I know for sure if I didn't because the Bible says that, you don't let someone take your joy. I
Mm.
let a fleshly person take my joy, and that's not okay. And I would just say anyone that is maybe dealing that too right now is first look at what they're saying and not how they're saying it.
Yeah.
That was my first issue is like some of the things that he was getting on to me about, he wasn't wrong. It just was the
Mm-hmm.
way he was saying it. And then maybe some of the
Yeah.
things he said after that, that I wasn't
Yeah.
able to just rub off my shoulder. I held on to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even like the probably this is the experience I know that broke me down the most is when he called me into his office and basically was like circling and pointing out it was pictures of me that parts of my body that he thought was not right because he said that my stats had decreased, so he thought it was because of my body. Really, it
Mm.
was because of him. I mentally just wasn't able to play like how I know
Yeah.
I could have played. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, having to not be able to lift with my team and having to weigh in twice a week was awful.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
just reverted to instead of not eating, I just wore really big clothes to hide myself, and
Mm-hmm.
that tore me apart. And I think that was probably 2015, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to say I fully healed because I do feel like sometimes I have moments where I have to check myself like, hey, you're not going back there.
Mm.
I started loving
Yeah.
myself
That's
more,
good.
and it was probably 2021. So it was recently. It took me
Yeah.
over 7 years to get over it. So
Yeah.
it's real. My experience, I pray no one else has.
Yeah.
That's why I'm also so big. I love what you do with Season
Mm-hmm.
Builder because I feel like coaches need that. And we do have great coaches. And I do believe we have coaches that sometimes they just don't know how to motivate young people
Mm-hmm.
in a way that is positive and uplifting. All we
Mm-hmm.
see is cussing people out, throwing clipboards, but it's not productive. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
Instead,
Right. Makes you feel
you're
better in the
hurting someone
moment.
on the end. Right. It's only the moment you can't talk the next day. You know what I mean? Blood vessel popping. It's not worth the stress.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I do pray no one has my experience, but I am thankful for it
Yeah.
because it not only made me stronger, it's my testimony. That's when I found Jesus was in college.
Mm.
Even though I gave my life to Christ when I was like 7 or 8, and then of course I
Mm-hmm.
went to a Christian private school in Madison Academy, and I was involved in every club and FCA and all that. But when I got to college, that's when I experienced God. That's when I experienced the trials and tribulations, the temptation, just the doubt, the barely having a mustard seed faith, all
Mm.
that. That's when I learned how to get down on my knees, how to pray. I was walking around that gym like it was the wall of Jericho, praying that just things would just come down. I
Yes.
did that with a couple of my teammates. I did all that. I had to pray from walking to my dorm to the gym. Like it was real. As
Yeah.
the Bible says, it's not, it's the power is not with flesh and blood, you know what I mean? But spiritual principalities. So you're fighting something deeper than what is you see in front of you, and we have to be equipped.
Hmm. Hmm. Mm. Thank you so much. So I even feel like you sharing those realities and the struggle, but also the ways that you would um, cope with that, and I would say fight that. So I know you're helping a lot of people right now, just in our conversation. So I'm praying for that.
Thank you. Me
Man,
too.
thank you, thank you. Okay, so we've gone high school. Now we've touched on college, and now again, I know a lot of people that listen to this may have aspirations to play pro. Whether it's realistic or not, I think there's a lot of people have aspirations to play professional basketball, whether that's here in the United States or the abundant opportunities that may be overseas in Europe, in Asia, and a lot of
Hmm.
Africa. And so you actually got the opportunity to do that. You lived
Hmm.
that dream in was that Bilbao, I think, or is that where you
Bilbao,
played?
Spain.
Yeah, yeah, in
Yeah.
Spain.
Hmm.
Yeah. So there's a phrase that I use when my son was wanting to play college baseball, and I had a view into. I played it myself for a couple of years, and I've I've been there, and it's tougher than you think. I used to tell him, I said, "Okay, son, do you like the idea of playing college baseball, or do you like the reality? You may not like the reality. I know you like the
Hmm.
idea of it." And so I think
Yeah.
about professional going on from college to play in Europe or playing overseas, especially because of the distance, that I think a lot of people like the idea of it, but the reality of it may be a little bit different. I would love for you to share both the joys of it, the coolness of it, the experience of it, but also some things that maybe they should be prepared for so they can use them as wisdom, as pieces of knowledge to consider when they're trying to make that decision. So they're fully known. The issue, the
Yeah.
situation is fully known before they step into that. So what would you say were go ahead and start with the good news. I love starting with the good news. So,
Well, one is just if you have the opportunity to go to a different country. I think if you haven't been outside the United States, we aren't the prettiest country. There are prettier countries, and actually, we do not have the best food. There's a lot of countries that have way better food than us. We're like the knockoff version, in my opinion. But just be able to go like to Spain, just talking about that, we can even talk about the culture, like
yeah.
being able to experience the food. Like they actually are picking it out of the ground and just selling it right there on the street. There's no extra fertilizing injections of anything. It's literally as fresh as it can get. And having that experience while I was overseas, and that's what I would encourage anyone to maybe to go a little bit deeper into the culture. Like, don't just go to practice, play your game, and come back home. Like, actually
Yeah.
be intentional about walking and getting out and experiencing. I actually ended up coaching while I was down there with the little sixth grade boys team. I was able to coach there. And so, being really immersed, I did speak the language. So, that, of course, that
Mm-hmm.
does help. That was probably the best part of just being a part of a different culture, seeing the world, seeing there's just so many more beautiful countries out there. I
Yeah.
did travel around Spain as much as I could in between games, sometimes a weekend. I wish I did a little bit more. I did go to Italy at that time. He's like a brother to me, Karan Johnson.
Yeah.
He was playing a team out in Italy, and I actually flew over to see him play. Just definitely enjoy being there in the moment. Like you
Yeah.
literally are getting paid to play a sport that you love. So don't just treat it like that business part, but enjoy the benefits of it. It gets brought
Yep.
you a different, place of living, style of living. I live with a host family, so it was a very unique experience. I loved it. That's why I really got immersed in the culture and learning the language and really made me appreciate things a lot more. I lived in a
Yeah.
really small flat. It was a two-bedroom flat, one bathroom with four people and a little tiny kitchen and the laundry room. There was no laundry room. It was a little tiny, just I don't even know. It's just I think of a basket. I had never seen it before. I didn't know how to do laundry when I first got there, but and there was no dryer, so you had to hang everything like outside. And so it was just a very unique experience. I absolutely loved it. And if there was a bad part, I honestly would just say it's the adjustment. like
Yeah.
the adjustment to the time change, the adjustment
Hmm.
to we had to practice at 10 o'clock at night. I was not used to
Mm.
that.
Whoa.
So that was a huge adjustment. Getting home midnight, 1 o'clock, eating at that time too. That was tough. Also the adjustment of just being an American overseas, you don't get a lot of foul calls for you. So it's a little bit, and then you can't foul them because you definitely gonna get called. You can't breathe. So that was an adjustment athletically, definitely. But I thoroughly enjoyed meeting new people. I still keep in contact with my host family, and I hope to visit sometime soon too.
One of the things that talking with other athletes is the shift in how much time you now have. Whereas college, you didn't feel like you had any
Mhm.
time. Like you're rushing
Yeah.
to do this and all of a sudden you get there and they're not practicing every day, you know,
No.
and just the amount of time that you then now had on
Mhm.
your hands and how to healthily, how to productively use that time, they
Yeah.
say has been a big adjustment.
Yeah. That's a great point. I definitely agree because, like I said,
You
I didn't practice till
experienced
10 o'clock
that
at
too.
night. Yeah, so that's why I
Yeah.
did the coaching. I even taught. I just was trying to fill up my time, and that's when I
Hmm.
actually ended up writing "Have Faith Like Noah." You have so much time on your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then the other thing was just the loneliness. You speaking the language was helpful, but again,
yeah,
you didn't have your buddies that you played with in college or your friends that you had in high school. You weren't an hour and a half from home like you were. You know, you're a half a world away, and just the intentionality to stay connected. So that was one of the things that's been really tough, and the definitely in the beginning was the loneliness.
yeah. I would agree with that. And it's funny you said that because I remember there was only a small certain part of the day that I actually heard from people back home. So like I remember like when I was waking up and walking to the school, everyone back home was sleeping. So
Mm.
there was like a window. I think I remember in Spain, it was like between 2 and 4 o'clock, which was like 8 to 10 a.m. back home, where I
Okay.
heard from people. And so yeah, it was really hard because your phone wasn't ringing when
Yeah.
you're asleep, and that's when D&D do not disturb became a thing for me because when I was asleep, that's when you guys it was like 4 or 5 p.m. in the
Blowing you
day.
up.
So it's like yeah. That's one thing you really have to be to get your body adjusted to the time change. You really have to be
Yeah.
adamant about it. And yeah, there comes with that some very lonely parts. And I remember I had just got out of a relationship, so then I went to Spain, and so it was very hard being alone, not one to talk to, but also recovering from that breakup and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it definitely isolation and being alone is a real thing. Yes.
Yeah, and I hope anyone listening or watching this online is, we're not saying it's terrible, don't do it, but hey, go in with eyes wide open. Like go in prepared.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, that's a thing. Okay, I need to do some intentional things to stay connected. So that's good. Okay, well, that's part of your athletic journey that's just so amazing, and I just love it. So you decided to stop playing, and you came back to
Mhm.
the U.S. And one of the things that where you and I got to reconnect again, which was so awesome, was high school coaching. So you became
Yes.
a high school girls coach, and
Hmm.
just knowing you again, if anybody remembers the words that I mentioned when I let off this podcast, that Sierra is such a people person. She's such a lover of people. She's a developer of people. She's a leader, and so like her stepping into that role with a team of players that needed a strong role model. I was just really, really excited. I was excited for those kids as I was for you. So the
Yeah.
main thing I want to hear from you is tell me some of the rewards of coaching. We hear a lot of tough things about high school and coaching in general right now, but you know what? We'll leave that for someone else to talk about. I just want to talk
Yeah.
about some of the rewards that you got from coaching in high school.
Yeah, I think there was so many rewards, especially because where I coached, it was a Title I school, so a lot of these kids didn't have much. And I just wanted to love on them, and that fit well with my coaching style. Because if you
Yep.
saw me coaching the sideline, I'm not a big yeller. If you hear me raise my voice, it's because I'm literally cheering them on. Like I consider myself like a personal cheerleader. But I think that one of the biggest rewards is honestly the impact that you can make. And I know it probably
Hmm.
sounds cliche, but it's actually a faith thing too, of not even expecting anything in return. Because I
Yeah.
think that's where some coaches we can go wrong is like, I'm doing all these things for you. What are you doing for me? And you can
Yep.
take that personally and then it can kind of hurt a little bit more. But
Yeah.
when you just have the heart of just like, I want to not only teach these kids the game, but I want to teach them life and not expect anything in return, there are so many rewards. If it's just small as them learning how to be more thankful just for you. Because I would
Yep.
say my girls, when I coached, they didn't really appreciate me my first year. At least I didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
And also that's the thing where we're coaching high school kids, so they don't know how to communicate. They don't know
Hmm.
how to show their appreciation. And I
No.
think I was expecting that my first year, so I was hurt.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm breaking my back and I'm doing sleepovers, and we had a dinner at Texas Day Brazil. Someone literally donated money to pay for every girl's meal, including my coaches. Phenomenal. I remember I didn't get much of a thank you. And I remember at first I was like a little hurt by that, but at the same time I
Hmm.
was like, you know what, these are kids, and I wasn't expecting anything in return. And I shouldn't have been. It's just more of giving them a different view of life, showing them what a nice restaurant looks like instead of them going to Burger King or McDonald's, which most of my
Yeah.
girls at that time, that's all they really had ever seen.
Yeah.
So just really being able to pour into them. I see myself as I'm a coach, but I'm also a life coach.
Hmm.
And life coach that's with everything. So that's taking them to church. That's having those really tough conversations about relationships. That's even, I took my girls to Belmont. We had a former player who is at TSU. So we went to see her play, but before we went to TSU, we stopped at Belmont. So they got to like walk around and see a difference between a Christian private school and an HBCU. So they got to see a difference between the facilities. And I think that was
Yep.
very eye opening. But the rewards are endless. It's just really of what your perspective is of why you're doing what you're doing.
That's a great answer. This word's been going through my mind for 6 months, but it's popped in my mind two times while you've been talking. When you talked about a high school person, a young man or woman going into college, and then a coach stepping into that role, it's all about identity. You got to have your identity rooted in
Mm,
the
yeah,
right things.
yeah,
And if you're looking for your acceptance and your approval and your love and all of those things from a bunch of 15, 16, 17 year olds, you're in trouble. You're
yeah,
in trouble. If you're
yeah,
looking for your identity, your security, you're looking for that in an orange ball under the lights on a court in a city you have never been to, you're going to be in trouble.
yeah,
You really need to understand what you and I would say is who you are in Christ. That
yeah,
is so important to root yourself in, and then that you're not a basketball player, that
hmm,
you're a free, forgiven, loved, empowered, adopted, chosen, nude, accepted, approved child of God. Now, that if I've just been
yeah,
reflecting on that so much because the word identity has been used in a lot of different situations nowadays, and really identity is who your father
mm,
calls you. I call that defined identity. So when you accept a relationship with Christ, there are some things that you are gifted. Your identity is received, not achieved. And that He's given you gifts, He's given you skills, He's given you opportunities. Those things have been designed into your life. You're going to take advantage of. But that's who you are, not basketball, not who that coach says you are, not who the fans say you are, not who social media says you are, not even who you
yeah,
say you are. you
yeah,
know, then let's
yeah,
find and make sure we root our identity in the right things. And I think even from a coaching perspective, hey, let's root our identity as men and women in Christ, and then go be love in action. That's what I call it. When you know your identity, what you do is then just love in action.
yeah,
And that's what you
yeah.
do. And so
That's
I,
real.
I just wanted to share that because that's identity. is so important. A proper view, what I would call complete secure
Mhm.
identity, is so important. So yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Can
Well,
can I add on to that what you just
please,
said?
please, please, yes.
Because I believe identity is a key part to it. Because if when you said that, I thought about my first year, and I came to a point where I had to. I actually have a sticky note still in my dresser. I said, "Do you care about disciplining them and preparing them for life, or do you care about wins? Which
Mm,
one?" And that became because of pride. I didn't want to lose.
right.
I'm not used to losing. I'm thankful I've been in winning programs my whole career. But it came to a point where the identity, I had to ask myself in pride, do you care that you're now developing bad habits or you're not being consistent with disciplining because you want to win, because you want your best player to be on the court? Or are you trying to prepare them for life? And of course, life is the correct answer. And when
Yes.
I chose that way and started coaching differently, I started disciplining my better players consistently and holding everyone to the same standard. That's when we started winning even more. That's when things started clicking when my knowing being sure of my identity and who I am, and then also the identity I wanted the team to be, the program to be. And you have to then you have to take some L's. Like I remember one time I benched her for like a whole half. I hated to do it, and I even told my assistant coaches, I was like, "Do not let me put her in the game.
Yeah, right.
Don't let me do it." 'Cause it was tempting, but
Yeah,
no, it's what you hit, and that's so true.
yeah.
Identity, yes.
Well, one more little thing that I want to ask you. You've had a lot of experiences, and one is you're a growth minded person. So a lot of people just go through things. You grow through things. And so, if
Mm-hmm.
I could just be an encouragement to others listening to that, do that. Don't let life happen to you. Let
Yeah.
absorb it, take it, learn from it, move on. And so, what are some of the lessons that you have learned through your experiences that, and you're still growing, right? But what are some of
Mm-hmm.
the things you've learned and you're trying to now live into and really change or grow?
Yeah. It's funny. I graduated Monday, and I was like just so weight lifted off my shoulders of with graduating. But it was because I was I was college was what 3 years for my master's, and my first 2 years I was coaching. I
That's
was
right.
leaving games with heels on, going straight to UH, practice, all of the above. Was on academic probation my end of the first year because I didn't know how to balance. That was my first year coaching. And then when I resigned in March of 23, it was a blessing in disguise. And
Yeah.
I had opportunities to get right back into coaching, but I felt like God was like, focus on school.
Hmm.
And I would say I have grown and learned that one, there's a woman, a colleague of mine told me, she was like, Sierra, don't let your crown fall. Now, growing through that of keeping my head high no matter what happens,
Okay.
of
Keep your head high.
thinking, we are royalty. That's
That's right.
biblical too.
Amen.
And you have that crown in your head. So, in order for it to not fall, you have to keep your head up no matter what happens. And that was a big one for me because I didn't want to resign, but I know the situation that I was in, God had to force me out because He knew I wasn't going to leave on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through a little season of depression and I was upset and mad. And that was that keeping my crown high. And then also, I've been growing with reflecting
Okay.
daily throughout the day. Thinking about having a literal mirror in front of you and taking the time to ask yourself questions of, did you say that right? I love that now when I have conversations with people, I replay it back in my head and ask myself, was that offensive? Was that okay? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I want to be better at being intentional with the words coming out of my mouth. Our
Okay.
words
Yeah.
are so, so powerful.
Yes.
And
Life and
then
death.
I've grown also with seeking therapy, talking to
Okay.
someone. I've done like 3 or 4 sessions, but
Good.
those few sessions that I have done has been eye opening of even some things that I found out when I was coaching and where it was coming from when I was
Mm,
little, or just
right.
little things that I didn't know that this was a big one. I'll just share this. I mentioned about my coach, the one I had the first 3 years. Um, I was so fearful of making mistakes because of
Yes.
a comment he had made. I remember it was like a couple of days after I got in a really bad wreck, and I can't remember what it was, but just for an example, I think I should have like cut right instead of left. So something very minor that he could have been like, hey, cut left, not right. You know what I mean? But I won't say what he said, but what he said to me was so awful that I didn't realize that I just figured this out like maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Mm.
I have an issue with making mistakes, like small
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Like, even if I remember I was with one of my friends and I forgot to, I do property management on the side, and I forgot to like place some tissues out, something really small. And they called me out on it and they were like, hey, you forgot this. And I got super defensive. I was like, no, I
Mm.
didn't. What are you talking about? I just got really feisty. And then I had to
Yeah.
ask myself, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Like I'm not able to not only admit that like I made a mistake, but if someone calls me out on the mistake, I get defensive. And I
Mm.
realized it was because of that experience. I hadn't healed from it. I just
Yeah.
put a band-aid on it.
Wow.
That I still think about what he said at that moment of the small minor mistake I made. And that was literally like 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And today, I mean, this was recent, like 5, 6 months ago. I am now in the process, and I'm proud to say I can do it now. Like if I make a mistake, I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Or just
Grace,
saying like
grace,
I'm
grace.
sorry. I'm like, yeah, grace, grace. Or just saying I'm sorry and um how can I fix it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been very enlightening. But because when I say looking in the mirror, you think about it, we can't reflect if we're moving quickly. Like you can't look at
Okay.
yourself good if you're
Mm-hmm.
go, 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 go.
Yeah.
So my pace is intentionally slower. Like I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to take a moment and look at it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's been the two things I've been most proud of just being able to reflect and being able to keep my head high no matter what happens.
Can I ask you a follow up question to that
Mhm.
last point you made?
Yeah.
What what was the catalyst for that? What when I mean like what brought awareness that you went, man, I'm being defensive about that. Man, that wasn't the right way to respond. Like, was there a moment that you can remember? Or did somebody say something to you that made you stop and think? Or what was kind of the catalyst that kind of woke you up to start looking in the mirror, right? Because you were running so
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. I would say that moment was a close friend of mine that just went in on me one day.
Okay.
I'm just honest
Okay.
with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
No, this is good.
really
This is what we
called
want.
me out. Yeah, just really called me out about some things. And I just was like, all right, this is not the first time I've heard this. This is
Hmm.
like the third, fourth time I've heard this.
Okay.
Maybe I do need to start looking at myself. And when I did that, that's when I just started being aware of so
Yeah.
much more that I was oblivious of that I was doing. Or just
Hmm.
small things of like even because they call me out about some things, I noticed the same traits in like my family.
Mm,
So being
okay.
able to recognize that and be like, okay, my family's great, but there's certain things that I don't want. So basically paying attention to that and fixing it. We control our emotions. I have this diagram on my mirror it's a it's like a Venn diagram basically.
Hmm.
So it has a circle of things that are in our control and
Yep.
then it has a circle of things that are outside of our control.
Yep.
And I look at that daily just to remind myself of what is in my control. If I
Yeah.
make a mistake, it's in my control to how I respond. I can't control
Yes.
how the other person responds. And that's
Yes.
something that I had to go on a grips with because I couldn't control what my coach said to me. And so going forward after that moment, I started to try to control what was said to me by either I got defensive or my favorite is I would make it lighter. Let's say I spilled some paint. I'd been like, but I tripped first, you know? Excuses instead
Excuses.
of just saying, yeah, my bad, I did it, my bad.
Yeah, man, I kicked the
So
crap out
I
of that
think
can.
that just to answer your question in the most abrupt
Hmm.
way is just having real friends around me.
Mm.
Um, that was the catalyst of me being able to see it and me caring that I wanted to change.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. It reminds me of what you said about the advice that you said about if someone's giving you hard coaching and even inappropriately hard
mhm.
coaching is to
Yeah,
listen to the words, not the emotion. Listen to
yeah,
the words,
yeah,
not the emotion. Don't
mhm,
feel how their words hurt. Just as hard as you can. It's almost like white knuckling it. Just, just listen if you can, objectively evaluate the words. And it's hard, right? We're not saying this
Yeah.
is easy, but that can be an opening to a whole new opportunity to change and to
Yeah.
grow if we can do that. So,
Yeah.
wow, man, I could go on another hour. We've had conversation, like I said, 7 years. Amazing. It's been that
Mhm.
long. And the reason that we formed the friendship was that your kindness and your willingness to engage an adult at a Lifeway bookstore. You were
Mhm.
buying something in the Lifeway bookstore. I happened to be in there and I recognized you from Madison Academy. And I said something like I always do. But you were just so engaging and you were able to communicate. Oh yeah, I remember you from FCA or whatever that you said. And I don't know, I just I liked you. I'm like, man, I like that
Mhm.
girl, you know, and I
Yeah.
followed up with you, and then we got to be friends, and just so it goes back to the communicating part, back to high school,
Yeah.
that we have a just an awesome friendship now because
Mhm.
of that skill, and so this has been a great. I'm glad we recorded it because we've had a lot of
Yeah.
conversations over the years, and I remember a lot of good things, but I can go back and listen to this one anytime I want to now.
No,
So
and thank you to you for just, I mean, you said it earlier about, you've been in the stands and like you literally have been. You came to some games and you've been really intentional even when I was at Belmont. So thank you to you as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's been great. A few things we talked about. The Coach Edge app is released. I want to encourage you to go download that. The link is in the show notes here, coachedge.seasonbuilder.org. You can get it directly from our website. Give it a shot. Follow us on social media. We're at Season Builder on Instagram, Facebook, on X, formerly Twitter. I feel like I have to say the formerly Twitter piece on there. And so just would love to see if we can add value to you and let something be positive and encouraging on your social media feed. But until next week, Sierra, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.